Welcome to the Collide Kids podcast, hosted by Christen Clark. This is a show for kids and families. You are going to meet new people and have fun while you listen. Let's do it!
Now you know. Bryce, this is so fun that you get to be on the Collide Kids podcast today.
I am stoked. This is something I've looked forward to for some time. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
You're welcome. You're just one of my favorite people. I used to work with you a while back, and now you have this really cool job. So will you just introduce yourself to everyone? Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
It would be my pleasure. My name is Bryce Payne. I was about to just go into a full slate and be like, I'm 24 years old. I live in New York City, which is a wonderful, wonderful, cool place to be. Right now, it's a little crazy because of everything going on in the world, but it is where I call home for the moment because I work for Broadway, which for those of you who were less initiated into it at a young age like I was, Broadway is where a lot of theater comes from in America. It's in New York City. It's kind of the historic center for theater. And I work on Broadway for a company called Disney, which many of you probably know about.
I've heard of them.
Have you heard of Disney?
I've heard of Disney.
We have some of our shows, Frozen, Aladdin. I bring props to everything that I do. That's
awesome.
part of the theater. And I work in marketing. I'm a marketing coordinator for Disney Theatrical Group.
Very cool. That's so fun. And I love Broadway. So I love Broadway music. I've been to quite a few shows on Broadway in New York City. And can I just say, New York City is one of my favorite places to visit around the holidays. It's like all the movies like Home Alone and all those where they show, not Home Alone. Well, yeah, Home Alone 2.
Yeah, Home Alone 2.
Yeah, I was like, wait, who's Chicago? Okay, Home Alone 2. Yeah, where they show you all the things that are beautiful, the giant trees, like all those things. It's true. It's not fake movie magic. It's actually a wonderful place around the holidays. So I love that. And I love that you live there. What's your favorite part about living in New York City?
I actually am going to have to double down on the holidays because
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, I grew up in Georgia, and of course I love my home state, but there is something about being in New York City during the Christmas season. It just feels so wintry. Now, this year we haven't had any snow yet, at least not substantial snow, but it feels like you're in a Hallmark movie, except, not the ones where they're in the little town and she meets a baker or whatever. It feels like you're in, the big scenes from every movie you've ever seen, Elf.
Yes.
Anyway, I love being in the city at this time of year. And I love how the city just has a life to it. It's got an identity that extends to everybody.
Yeah.
And everyone who's in New York City, even the people who grew up here, I feel like everyone kind of brings themselves to the city in such a unique way that makes it a huge melting pot for the whole country. It's insane how New York City just exists and is like this living organism.
Yeah.
So it's a very cool place to be.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the diversity of cultures and food and just all the things that New York has. So
99-cent pizza. I mean, what could be better than that?
What is better than that? Nothing. Well, okay. I want to get into all of this, and I definitely want to talk to you today about your job. But before we do that, because this is a podcast for kids, I always like to start out by asking my guests to share a joke. So you got a joke for us today?
Boy, do I. And by the way, totally new podcast for kids. That's why I brought up pizza like within the first 10 minutes. I know my audience. Okay. Right. It's exactly what's that's what gets me involved. Okay. This one is fully in the holiday spirit and the holiday season. You know Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen, but do you know Santa's most impolite reindeer?
No, I don't. Who's the most impolite reindeer?
It's Rudolph.
Yes, that's awesome.
Rudolph.
Yes, I love that you're sharing a Christmas joke. So everybody's got to tuck that away and save it for next year. That's going to be on the first episode.
Exactly.
I'm sure.
It's definitely not topical at the time of this release.
Totally fine. So, okay, tell us about your job. How did you get started working in Broadway with Disney? That sounds so fun.
Well, it was the blend of everything that I ever kind of wanted from a career in theater. I think that's kind of what kind of leads into it. When I was in high school, I remember I really liked doing theater, but it was a really good friend of mine who said, you like doing theater, but what you like is, or she kind of helped me realize that I enjoyed putting things together and seeing things go from an idea into a reality. And so from there, I went into arts administration. I tried that in college. I did some summer stocks along the way. And there was a really great connection at my college. I'm going to shout out, I went to Clemson University, go Tigers. And so from there, I went down to the Disney College program.
Okay.
I've always really loved Disney. I grew up with the movies and I grew up with the musicals, with Beauty and the Beast, with Aladdin, with Newsies. I think Newsies may even have been my first Broadway show that I saw. So I loved the blend of Disney, something that's very near and dear to my heart, and theater, something that's always been very key to my family and music in general. So after college, I got a job working for a theater in Massachusetts. And it was during their busiest time of the year. We had just gotten through that time, kind of the post-summer area. And I was looking for jobs, and I happened to find an opening with Disney Theatrical Group. And I knew that, that's kind of where I wanted to be one day. But I thought, this is never going to happen. I'm, 21. I'm living in Massachusetts. Like, why would I applied, I was interviewed, and I got the offer for the job within a week.
Wow.
Which meant that I had to move to New York within a week.
Wow.
So packed everything in the car, drove in, got an Airbnb, and I started working for the company then. And I started with sales and have moved up into marketing as a coordinator, and it's been a great journey.
That's amazing. What do you love about marketing? Like what okay, let's start there. What is marketing? And then what do you love about it?
Marketing is how do you describe marketing, Christen? Marketing is how we convey the value of something, right? Okay. So in my case, I'm going to just describe as specifically as possible. We have a wonderful show. We have Aladdin on Broadway, we have The Lion King on Broadway, and of course, all of the tours across the country and across the world. And we know they're wonderful, but unfortunately, unless someone can get that information to someone who'd want to buy a ticket, then other people may not get to find out just how wonderful our shows are. Mm-hmm. So the job of the marketing department is to get the word out about our shows, to show you how fun they can be before you've ever stepped foot in the door, and to convince you to come see one of our shows and give it a shot. Okay. And fortunately, we've got a great set of shows that everybody is familiar with, so it's not a hard sell, but it's something that I've enjoyed getting to really get more involved in. So for me, what that looks like is we get a lot of television ads that we put out with our shows in them. We go on the radio. We have, our actors come into the studio and record their voices and sing some of their songs so we can play those and really give people the experience of the show before they've ever walked in the door.
That's amazing. And so you're working with Lion King and Aladdin. What are some things you love about those being on Broadway versus like the movies?
So I think that Aladdin was a show that was, or even as a movie, was really written for the stage. Mm-hmm. What's amazing about seeing Aladdin that I think you get in it, maybe when you are seeing Aladdin, the animated classic, for the first time, I remember seeing it and thinking, oh my gosh, like, you've got Robin Williams voicing Genie and it's just so magical. But there's something about seeing it on stage as an adult and still saying, how did they do that? It's got the magical factor that I think really brings you back to childhood and seeing it for the first time. And of course, it's got all the glitter and glam that you could ever want from a musical. So it's so exciting to sit in the audience and see. But more than that, it really does bring you to this feeling of wonder of seeing the show. And it's so much fun.
That's cool. Yeah. And I love the energy in the room of a Broadway show. So when you're watching a movie, like you're chomping on popcorn, you're whispering to someone next to you, like you're involved in the movie. And I love movies, but watching a show on stage, it's just different and it's hard to describe it, but it's so fun. So I've loved all the shows that I've been able to see. I got to see The Lion King, not on Broadway, it was an off-Broadway experience, but it was incredible how the animals came to life and these people were like, it was just, it was amazing thing and it retold the story, I think it felt different versus watching the movie. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. The Lion King is one of my favorite shows to see of any show on Broadway. And what's amazing is how long it's been running. The Lion King has been on Broadway for 25 years next year.
Wow.
And for reference, I also turned 25 next year. So we have been around approximately the same amount of time. And that is a show that brings in millions of people to experience the same thing together.
Yeah.
And many of them, 2,000 times simultaneously. That is the experience of theater right there, is how we are able to convey an immense culture into a 2-hour experience and then do it again and again and again in a way that is so easily digestible by hundreds. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me about what it's like working there. So you didn't grow up in New York City and now you work in New York. What's that like to work in a new place?
Working in New York City is fun. Working in New York City can be a little challenging. There, of course, is the subway, which is a great start and end to my day. But one of the best things about working here is coming off of that subway and arriving on 42nd Street. You come up the escalator, you walk out onto the street, and looking around, it's marquees, it's every big theater and every big restaurant that you've ever heard of. It really does feel like you're walking onto a movie set every day, which is just insane. And I'm very lucky. Our office is actually above the New Amsterdam Theater where Aladdin plays. So every day I get to walk into the lobby of a Broadway theater, punch the elevator button, and head on up to our office. And it's a really great place to work, and I think a pretty unique working experience. No job have I had that's been like that. So
I'm sure, where you feel like you're walking to a movie set. Yeah.
Yeah, we know.
I don't feel like that when I walk into
Magical.
my job experiences. But okay, so let's talk about that as well. You mentioned the marquee, and I saw a picture of you on social media where your name was on the marquee in lights.
True.
Tell us about that. How did you get your name on the marquee? That's the big light up sign. It was awesome. It was huge.
Well, thank you. It was truly such an honor to be on the marquee. We have had a very difficult year with Broadway. As I'm sure you know, as I'm sure many people know, with the coronavirus, Broadway was shuttered for about 15 months, I believe. So more than a year, there was nothing playing in New York City in the interest of trying to keep people healthy and keep our actors safe and our audiences safe. And this past season, we were able to reopen Broadway. So we opened The Lion King on September 14th, and at the time, it was a whirlwind just trying to keep everything open and keep our audiences in and get everybody really engaged again. And so now that we're here at kind of the end of the year, of course, there's still a lot going on, but we wanted to take a moment to really celebrate the people that made Broadway come back, especially for Disney on Broadway. So that is what we did. We took over our marquee, and there was an opportunity to put everyone's names on there. So my name was on the marquee, and it is such an honor to be up there on 42nd Street and kind of see that I also have a moment on the stage in a way, which is something I never asked for, but it's very fun.
Well,
and you know that I work tech for you, so you know I don't like to be on the stage, but occasionally it's
that's what I was going to say. It's something that so many people on stage dream of seeing their name in lights. They dream of seeing their name up there. And so the fact that you're not the stage person, but you got to have that opportunity, that's such a blessing. That just shows that you're in the right place for sure.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think it speaks highly that the decision was made to kind of feature people in that way. And, it was wonderful seeing a lot of my friends on Facebook also sharing their marquee photo and their own testimonies of what this meant to them. There's a really great quote, and I promise, I'm not being paid to say any of this, but it's a Walt Disney quote. It's one of my favorites though. And it says, the quote goes that it takes people to make the dream a reality. And I think that's very true in the case of our, business unit of Disney on Broadway, but anywhere you go, people create the biggest difference in each other's lives. And people create the biggest difference just by the notion of wanting to do something together and coming together in the interest of something greater. And that's what we were celebrating by putting all of those people's names in the marquee, but something we can kind of celebrate every day just by appreciating one another and walking into each day with kind of a mentality of gratefulness that we're here and we're still here and we're going to be here for each other and for ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, like just to speak to your character, I think you're one of the most happy, like genuinely happy people I know, and you have such a good attitude. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that today because we're already in 2020. We just started. We're kicking off
2022.
Oh gosh.
I hope
I'm
we're not
still
going
in
back to
2019.
2020, Christen. Don't bring me back there.
Don't go back. No, we're approaching this new year, and I think it's just so important that we go into this brand new year of 2022 with a good attitude. So tell us your secret. What's the secret to having a good attitude all the time?
That's a great question. I remember when I was in high school, I was in marching band, and we went to a camp where they brought on some great speaker who was doing all these lessons in leadership and everything. But one of the things he said really stuck with me, and it's that you don't always get to choose what's going to happen to you. You don't get to choose if you wake up and, maybe you slept bad, or, maybe you don't like your breakfast. But what you can choose about every day is your attitude and how you choose to embrace the things that happen and strive to overcome them in the best way that you can. And so what I try to do is I try to smile often, even if it's a conscious decision, just to figure, oh, hey, I'm not really feeling how I want to feel. And sometimes that can be fixed just by making a physical change of smiling. And when you smile, the world smiles with you. I think I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
But I really believe it. I think if you create a positive mentality for yourself, you can really feel more positive. And I think we all need some positivity in our lives. And if you can be that for someone else, then I think that's even better.
Absolutely. It's that choice, like you said, and then you give that away. When you choose that, then you give that away to other people, which is really important. Tell us about your faith in God. How does your faith play into having a good attitude? We'll be right back after this. Raising kids in the digital age isn't easy, but Bark Technology makes products that help parents keep their kids safe online and in real life. They have an app, a phone, and a home device that lets families set parental controls on their internet-connected devices. I love the app because it helps us manage screen time and blocks websites and apps we want our kids to avoid. It also sends alerts and gives us the ability to monitor texts and social media and even track your child's location. Visit bark.us to learn more about how you can keep your kids safe online. Use the code COLLIDEKIDS to get 15% off your subscription of the Bark app.
I think one of the best things for me to always keep in mind is that God is a patient, loving God. Mm-hmm. And I know there have been times that, I've struggled with patience with people in my life, with myself, and giving myself grace and space sometimes to say, okay, don't beat yourself up over something that you're not really happy about. And I think that if I can remember that, God who is all powerful and God who is all knowing can be patient with someone who's, who at least is small like I feel, mm-hmm. then I can be patient with myself.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Does that translate?
Yeah. And I think it's so important for us to keep in mind, not just always like beating ourselves up, but keeping in mind who God is and how he's created us. He's made us to share ourselves with the world. And so we can do that in so many different ways, whether it's on a marquee or whether it's on social media or a podcast, or whether it's just being kind to your family and showing that gratefulness for who you are and how God's made you with them. How do you know when it's like when you're facing a difficult situation? Let's say you're facing something difficult. And I've known a couple of situations in your life where I hear like, oh, this happened to like your whole housing situation when you're trying to move back to New York and all these things fell through. And I was like, oh, that's devastating. And then I got to see you the next morning and you're like, it's fine. And you were just so happy about it. It's like, so you really do embody that, having a good attitude no matter what you face. So how do you do that? How do you face those hard situations with a good attitude?
I think a lot of it comes from faith that things will work out in the end. And part of that comes with just rolling with the craziness of the past 2 years. So much has happened to all of us. And, not all of it is something you can brush away and say, well, that just happens. So there have been some serious hardships. But I think what is the biggest thing we can take away is that we are resilient. And we are people that keep coming, no matter what the world can throw at us sometimes. And I think in the same way, God is resilient. When you think about the thousands and thousands of years that we have, messed up things and deviated from the plans, He's stood with us, and we've done our best to stand by Him. And I think realizing that no matter what, God is still going to be there, that God is still on our side. It gives me the strength to, chin up and keep going and realize that it's going to work out in the end, even if it doesn't seem that way in the moment.
Yeah. And whenever I've faced situations where a door is closed in my face or something that I really wanted to happen, that I really prayed would happen, and it falls apart or it doesn't work out, it is that knowledge, that hope that we have in God that, you know what, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense to me, but it makes perfect sense to God. And He knows exactly what He's doing and what's going to happen next. So just leaning into Him in those moments, I think is so good. Tell us about when you're going through a situation. This has happened to me a few times where I have the positive outlook and everyone around me has a negative outlook on what's going to happen. How is it that we help those people see the brighter side or see that there's hope in that? How do you do that? How do you show or convey to other people that it's going to be okay?
I think the most important thing that we can all embrace, especially right now, is empathy, and realizing that it can be very difficult to see in the long picture how things will work out in the end. And sometimes it can seem like those moments of uncertainty are just impossible to get past. But going from a place of, I understand, where you are a little bit, or at least I'm trying to, and signaling that you want to be compassionate, but then also trying to say it's going to be okay because we're going to get through this together. Mm-hmm. That show of compassion and that show of empathy and that show of teamwork can really be the encouragement that someone might need just to give things a shot and to be a little bit more positive and a little bit more optimistic and look ahead with some hope. And that's what we're here to do, I believe, is give people hope.
Absolutely. And I love that you said it goes with compassion. Like you're not just like, it's fine, don't worry about it, quit worrying about it. That's not helpful. But to have that empathy and to relate to them, but then also to link arms with them, I think that's great advice. So we're approaching 2022. What advice do you give to everyone about having a good attitude, having a positive attitude going into this new year?
Absolutely. So I think going into the new year, the most important thing to keep in mind is that you have an opportunity every day to be a new person. There's kind of this idea of like, new year, new me. I've got to wait till that new year to start something. And if it doesn't start right away, then, that's the whole year and it's all going to be that way forever. Right. But that's not true, right? Every day you have an opportunity to wake up, look at yourself and say, maybe I'm going to do today a little differently. Maybe yesterday was rough because I had something happen to me I didn't like, but today I can choose to be the change that I want to see out in the world. Mm-hmm. And so I think when it comes to attitude coming into this new year, realize that, that yesterday, all of last year may have been that yesterday. It may have been a rough year for who you are. It may have been a rough year for what you do or the kind of life that you're living. But that doesn't mean that this year has to be, right? This coming year, you can wake up with that smile and try to give people something to look forward to in the new year and realize that every day is an opportunity to have a new year. if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that. Whenever I've done like those 30-day challenges, or maybe like changing my diet or trying to start a new habit for whatever, I start like in the middle of the week. I don't wait until Sunday to start. I start on a Tuesday. Like today I'm going to make the decision to have a good habit, to do better. And that can be for your attitude as well. Just start every day. And if you mess up, you know what? You can start again and you can keep going. So I love that. Good advice. Well, this has been so fun, Bryce. I've loved talking to you, and I'm so excited for all that you're able to be a part of right now in New York City. And I'm jealous that you live there. I think it sounds like a wonderful place to be right now.
Thank you. I've had a great time, and you are always more than welcome to come up and visit.
Yeah.
There are plenty of great haunts around town that we'll have to show you too. Maybe podcast goes on the road. I think it's a great idea. You should start vlogging. Do a vlog. Do a travel vlog.
Hey, I can always start a new day and a new...
Exactly. New year, new you.
New year, new podcast. I love it. Well, before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests to share a memory from when they were a kid. So do you have a memory you want to share today?
Oh, man, mine is not well themed. Because...
Okay.
No, mine is at Halloween. So
that's okay.
You'll have to have me back in like 10 months. But one of my favorite memories growing up was every year we would build a haunted house. My dad and I, we build one in the garage. And my brother was involved some years, and my sister and others. And we would all get dressed up as scare actors, and we would do the whole thing in our garage. But it was so funny, because I remember the first year that we did it, we were so mad because we wouldn't get any candy that year because we were working in the scare factory that we had built in a garage. So my dad had the great idea. Everybody who came in had to pay a fee of one piece of candy.
Nice.
So that Christmas, that Halloween, we got everybody's least favorite candy because they gave up whatever candy they didn't want.
So you got like a lot of hard candy and
a lot of hard candy, a lot of those weird caramel duds, the milk duds that nobody wanted.
They pull your teeth out.
Exactly. So.
Oh, well,
what a memory.
What a memory. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad. Yeah. Hey, hold on a second.
He owes you a bag of Snickers or something.
Excuse me, I need to go to therapy.
That's awesome. I love that. Well, thank you again for being on the show today. It was so fun, and I hope you have a great 2022.
Thank you
Dang it,
very
I did
much.
Again. I hope you have a great 2022.
I hope you have a great 2022 too.
Oh, nice. Okay, clearly I need to be reminded that it is 2022, not 2020. Let us not go back to 2020, okay? I just loved all the things that Bryce and I got to talk about today. I love the Disney quote he gave us. It makes people to make the dream a reality. Such a good reminder that it takes people to get things done. And I loved when he said, if God is patient with us, then we should be patient with others and with ourselves. He also reminded us that we all need some positivity. So choosing to be that for someone else, we can smile each day, we can encourage them, but do that with compassion and empathy. And that way we can offer hope to other people. I also love the quote. He said, you have an opportunity every day to be a new person. You can start fresh each day and say, today I can choose to be the change I want to see in the world. Such good advice. I love that. Well, now it's time for the kids only segment. This is a part of the show where you get to be on the podcast. So here is Ethan.
He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. Ecclesiastes 3:11.
Thanks, Ethan. That was my son, Ethan. He did a good job. And I love that verse. It's actually my verse for the year. Just a reminder that no one can fathom what God has done. And so we can just be hopeful in what is to come for this new year. Well, I would love to hear your favorite Bible verse if you have one, or maybe your favorite joke or encouraging quote that you like from a book or a movie, or maybe you have a question you want to share. You can find all the information about how to send that to me through my social media. I'm on Facebook at the Collide Kids Podcast or on Instagram at Collide Kids Pod. If you'd like to support the podcast, there's a few ways you can do that. You can subscribe and follow this podcast so that new episodes will automatically load each week into whatever podcast app you're using. And please leave a rating and a review. That just helps so much for other people to find out about the show. You can also share the episode with friends and family and tell them why you and your family like to listen. And you can go to my website and click the link that says buy me a coffee. But anytime you think about it, I definitely could use your prayer support as well. I hope you guys have an amazing first few weeks of the new year. I hope that you enjoy this year immensely, that you carry positivity into it, and that you share the hope that you have through Jesus Christ. In case no one has told you today, I just want to be the first to remind you that God loves you so very much. Thanks for listening.
You don't have to go very far looking for bad news because somehow it just finds you. So finding peace in the chaos can be really difficult, but it doesn't have to be because the River mobile app exists. The River is a Christian music radio station dedicated to playing music to help you get through life's toughest moments or life's happiest moments and everywhere in between. And all from artists who love Jesus and are real people just like you. Listening is easy. You can download it wherever you get apps from. Just search 1049 The River or listen online at riverradio.com. And know that The River is proud to partner with the Collide Kids Podcast.